Yes, dude! Alright, without further ado, let's get right into the breakdown of this episode. Like I said in my previous breakdown, this episode would surely focus solely, or rather mainly, on the confrontation between Crosshair and the Bad Batch. And that it did. It starts with a sequence on Kamino, and we can see Admiral Rampart conversing with the Prime Minister of Kamino. It seems to me that Kaminoans have an agenda of their own that does not necessarily align with that of the Empire. What that agenda is exactly is anyone's guess, but it got me thinking that we might be seeing more seasons of the Bad Batch that will focus on just that. I am not convinced that this is a story beat that can be resolved in a couple of episodes. Initially, I thought the Bad Batch would only have one season, but now I think we might have more seasons than that. Could still be that this series is just a one season thing. We'll have to wait and see. So, Crosshair leaves for Bracca with orders to terminate Clone Force 99. And we cut to Bracca. There is a funny scene in which Wrecker teaches Omega how to disassemble a thermal explosive.
Because it's a smoke bomb! You think I let you train with a live explosive? I'm not crazy!
And then Echo, who joined Wrecker and Omega, gets spotted by scrappers from the Scrapper Guild. I was thinking one of them might be Cal, but yeah, I don't think so, given how easily they were dealt with. I guess it might have seemed, kind of strange seeing Cal. It might make the galaxy seem really small. But honestly, I really wish that they did, at least a brief cameo of Cal, Oh well. The Bad Batch is salvaging whatever they can on the Jedi Cruiser, and then Omega and Wrecker stumble upon Proton torpedoes. These were used by many starships and are some of the most destructive weaponry within the Star Wars IP. Luke Skywalker, for example, used a Proton torpedo to destroy the second Death Star during the Battle of Yavin, which paved the way for the Galactic Civil War. Omega meets up with Tech on the bridge and asks him a question about the Clone War.
Tech, what was the war like?
It is a scene that is both funny and thought-provoking.
It was a primary mission objective, comprised of battles on various fronts.
But what was it like?
I just told you.
Then the Empire arrives. This is followed by a short scene on Kamino, which is very interesting, in which cloners discuss their contingency plan and Omega. Or are both the same thing, huh? I mean, what could this contingency plan be? Maybe the clones have secondary chips, and Kaminoans plan a coup of some kind? As crazy as that seems, it would make sense given that cloners were the ones to implant the inhibitor chips in all the clones. Maybe they have some sort of plan in case the Empire turns on them? More on that later. Let's put a pin in this notion. The Bad Batch is trying to come up with a plan of their own to escape. And I must say it is really cool to see how Crosshair and the Bad Batch know each other and are aware that one can easily predict the other's actions. Crosshair catches up to Clone Force 99 and we witness a brief exchange between them.
He's telling the truth. The Kaminoans put chips in all the clones. Remember what I told you in the brig? You can't help it.
But clearly, unfortunately, Crosshair can't be reasoned with.
Trust me, it is not something you can control.
Omega even disposes of some clones. On one hand, it is a little weird to see a kid best two trained seasoned troopers, but on the other, it was already established, I guess, before, even in the Aftermath episode, that there is more to Omega than meets the eye, and she continually trains and learns. Perhaps she is a clone, unlike any other, that can improve their skill faster, in comparison to other clones, that is. After this entire action sequence, the Bad Batch enters the Ion Engine Chamber. While in the chamber, one of the Empire's troopers activates the engine, and the Bad Batch is trapped. With Crosshair out in the open, they decide to plant charges around the engine to separate it from the ship, and fall down with it. A bold plan that Crosshair did not see coming. When the engine starts because of the explosives, it reaches Crosshair and the clones, searing Crosshair's face. This instantly got got me thinking, could it be that his ship got damaged in the process? Perhaps from this point onwards, Crosshair will start to regain his free will on his own. I'm not saying that is the case necessarily, but it is a fun notion to, entertain. On a side note, I was really worried that Wrecker would die in this episode, killed by Crosshair, and later on, Crosshair would have to face that consequence of killing Wrecker after getting rid of his ship. But I guess it might be too dark for this show, that ultimately is aimed also for kids. But even so, it is still extremely dark, and I really appreciate how they are not afraid to pursue certain, more mature story beats. And then, yes dude, we get the highlight of the episode, learning about the bounty hunter that Kaminoans hired. This episode confirmed that Fennec Shand was indeed working for them. It wasn't outright stated, but yeah, this is the case. I think it was pretty obvious, I even said so in my previous breakdowns. I thought we might see Boba Fett in this episode, after the scene between the Kaminoans, but nope. Which I'm fine with, given that the bounty hunter is none other than Cad Bane. Yes, the legendary Cad Bane makes a comeback this episode. Cad Bane was meant to die in the Clone Wars to facilitate Boba's growth, but since they never got to finish the series, we never saw that arc come to pass. And since the Cad Bane episodes never saw the light of day, creatives were free to bring back Bane if they deemed it made sense for the story. And guess what? It did, and they did just that. Cad Bane is after Omega, and he has a really cool standoff with Hunter. I knew Hunter was pretty much screwed, like instantly. I mean, sure, he has his own strengths, and in some ways might be more powerful than Bane, but being a faster trigger than Bane is not one of those things. Cad Bane is like this ultimate Western space cowboy of Star Wars. Plus, quite possibly, the best bounty hunter in the galaxy right now. Jango Fett was possibly his equal, or maybe he was even slightly better, but he is gone. And Boba is still relatively young and unexperienced. That scene from the Clone Wars between Boba and Cad Bane, well, we might see it come to pass in the Bad Batch. Or maybe Cad Bane will appear in the Book of Boba Fett show. That would be a nice continuity thing. And we'd see another major animated character come to life in live action. Toto accompanies Cad Bane, and it is also really cool to see Cad Bane make a return along with his sidekick / comic relief, played by Seth Green.
You're in trouble now.
Even the music that played was so standoffish, if you will. It was just pure joy to see all this. Also very reminiscent of the Jedi scene between Mando and Lang, the mercenary guy from the Jedi episode. But the same could be said for a standoff of any Western, I guess. So yeah, Hunter loses, but he almost got Bane, since Toto got damaged in the process. Cad Bane calls Omega a little lady, just like he did Ahsoka back in the Clone Wars. A nice callback. We'll have to dance another time, little lady. Yeah, that was not a good impression.
Sorry, little lady.
In the end, Cad Bane gets away with Omega, and I think this is where we will start to learn more about who she really is. I don't think the Empire will even know about her for now. Pretty sure Kaminoans are keeping her a secret, and that she is somehow a huge part of the contingency plan. Perhaps all the clones got decommissioned because of their secondary chips that were a threat to the Empire. This would make for a nice explanation on why we had so many clones in episode 3, and at the end of it, and yet only stormtroopers that were not clones in episode 4. You could compare this continuity fix to what they did with the Death Star plans in Rogue One. Hunter gets saved by the Bad Batch, and we get a really cool shot of his visor, which instantly gave me Republic Commando vibes. Now, how will the Bad Batch go about getting Omega back? That is the question. This whole situation reminds me of how The Mandalorian played out, and Din Djarin was trying to get Grogu back from the the Empire. Will the Bad Batch get in touch with Rex and seek his help? Maybe even those that the Rex is working with right now. Ahsoka for one? Not sure if this will happen instantly in the very next episode. Perhaps first they will try to get Omega back themselves, but I'm thinking that might be the endgame of this show, or this season at the very least. I must say this show is really well written and surprised me. It is not just about a simple conflict between the good guys and the bad guys. You have clones versus clones, brothers against brothers basically. You have the Empire, the Kaminoans, that are like scheming behind the scenes against the Empire despite working with them. It is all very interesting. Star Wars was usually very black and white, and this show still is that. It is the core of Star Wars, you know, the light versus dark, but I'm seeing a little, experimentation going on and twisting the main formula, and it is really cool to see them try things. Can't wait to see how this all plays out. You can expect a lot more content from me this week, and in the future obviously, so be sure to hit that sub button if you've been watching my channel and enjoyed this breakdown, and may the Force be with you always.